You can't survive in a crevasse for beyond half an hour. Life is there on the edge. That was the first operation where ever in the Indian Army a drone was used. In a Paltan, we come as young boys, and commando school is where young boys are made into men. Material in the brain was all out onto the floor.
Welcome to Prachand Talks, a podcast by Irvin Khurana.
So, first of all, Jain, sir, how are you?
I'm good, yeah. Quite an exciting way to actually get onto this portal. Yeah, shit happens. It's okay.
Exactly, sir. Yes. So, people are actually waiting for you first. But one more thing is there that we know, how you started and what was the journey in the beginning when it came to your academy and what, motivated you or what inspired you to be in the armed forces. That today you are the fourth generation army officer of your family, right? So we will try and not dig into that because we know about it. You have already introduced yourself. But before we actually begin our session, I would like to ask you that are there any words from Anne that you would like to say before we start?
Well, Jai Hind, good evening to everybody. And I'm just waiting for this session to get on. And Irvin has worked extra hard for this meeting to get into effect. And I am really appreciative of his in-depth homework that he's done in terms of conducting this podcast in a very professional manner. So yeah, I'm up for it and I'm quite excited. Irrespective of the number of viewers we have, my focus is going to be on the content that we're going to create now by interacting with one another.
But we'll definitely make sure that it reaches to the right people on right
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Right, sir. So let's begin then with that. And so as we talked about the beginning, so let's talk about the beginning, but in a way when you got drafted in the armed forces, which was like your very first posting in Siachen. So as we know that it's a place where the mercury dips. When it dips, it go way deep, and the temperature is freezing enough. So my very first question to you with regards to that is, so how the acclimatization is done? Like, is it done from the base level and the level aggrandizes gradually, considering the body, like how a body responds?
Yeah, I'll not tell you exact what figures about it, but there are three stages of acclimatization. So there's a particular set standard of height or altitude, which defines your first stage. Then there's a certain height which defines the second stage, and then the third stage is at a height which beyond after that the body responds the same way no matter you are another 10,000 feet above or 5,000 feet above that. So the body behaves the same. So the after the third stage acclimatization, your body gets actually used to that particular surrounding and environment, and your blood pressure, your basic body parameters actually adapt to that particular altitude. So there are three stages at various particular heights. I would not like to mention that due to my own obvious reasons. That I don't wish to give things out and figures and all. Though I know it, but I wouldn't wish to.
Completely understand, sir. Some things are classified after all.
I mean, I don't know whether it's classified or not, but I'm a bit uncomfortable in sharing any figures or any particular data, irrespective of whatever the importance is. I just don't do it.
Okay.
So I think it's better that way.
Okay. Sure, sir. Sir, like you said that once acclimatization is done and you and your troops are finally there, at the top, guarding the entire territory over there and the terrain. So while climbing, if unfortunately some soldier or any of the persons if from the column falls in a pit, or even if not in the pit but falls rigorously, how does that affects the entire column in terms of the pressure? Like what I have learned is, sir, that you guys, when you move, you have ropes attached to each other.
It's called a safety line.
Safety line. Okay.
So basically, what happens is, uh, like supposing that 10 of us climbing up. So from the first guy to the 10th guy, there's going to be one common safety line which is going to be attached to our safety harness, which we tie at our hip. So that is that in case if amongst all 10 of us, either one, if the ice shifts or there's a crevasse by mistake, that the first guy, falls into. So the rest of the column with the help of the, ice axe can actually help anchor ourselves, and then we can actually plan to then pull this guy out. But trust me, the sudden jerk of so 80 kg human being with luggage. So it reaches almost around 90 to 100 kgs at times, with the body weight. I mean, your own body weight and the luggage you're carrying nears around approximately 100 kgs along with the weapon. So, that sudden 1 quintal of that, 100 kgs actually with a jerk pulls you. So, it actually, you are for a while, I mean, out of control. So you actually got to take, I mean, you got to recognize and recognize the situation, and you got to have a presence of mind where you're falling, where a particular guy has fallen. It could be a jerk that you're pulled back because somebody behind you could be that he just goes down, or somebody just ahead of you goes down. So with that uh, pressure and momentum of being pulled with approximately 100 kgs with a sudden jerk, it actually might cause the other people injury as well. So that is when somebody falls in, and you have to immediately use your ice axe to actually anchor yourself so that you don't get dragged into it, and then you got to work yourself out and getting your colleague out, your brother out from the crevasse, because there are no pits, there's just crevasses there. So yeah.
Okay. Sir, if God forbidden, like if there had been, a casualty within the column or within the troops, right? So what, like, how fast has the evacuation done?
I mean, if it depends. If he hasn't fallen too deep enough inside, you can get him out in another 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I mean, you can't survive in a crevasse for beyond half an hour. I mean, temperatures are in minus.
It's that low.
So, yeah, so it's like in minus 40, minus 50, or it might even go up to minus 70 in a crevasse. So in that kind of temperature, you don't live beyond half an hour. And if you get a fracture or you're immobilized, then probably your chances of survival become even more difficult. So I mean, life is there on the edge. It's very unpredictable, it's very unknown, it's very anxiety prone. Every step you take in the dark is like a big risk. You really wouldn't know whether you're going to see what you're going to see next. So yeah, it used to be very exhilarating, breathtaking, anxiety prone, tense. I mean, all the kind of emotions that pump up your adrenaline actually are put into place over there in such a terrain. So it's not easy, yes.
Sir, at what time of the day and at what exactly, like there are some stages in the hills as well while we climb. So what time of the day and what stage of the climb does most accidents take place? Like what
I mean, most accidents take place usually during daytime,
okay.
and ice tends to melt more quick during day.
Okay.
So that is a thing that, during day you got to limit your movements. So that is the time where snow melts, and there's the maximum movement in the glacier is when it's a sunny day. So usually people misinterpret a sunny day as a good day. It is not in terms of military point of view. And night is your best friend. So we make it a point to move at night until unless there's a blizzard or there's a snowstorm. That's another thing altogether. But if it is routine, I think night is our best friend to move and plan our conveyance.
So basically, sir, if I'm getting it right, during the daytime, the snow gets a little softer because of the sunlight.
Yeah, snow gets, snow, I wouldn't term it as snow getting soft. I mean, when snow melts, it crystallizes, it becomes hard ice as well.
Okay.
So, it's at very different, at the ridges, at the top of the mountains where the ice is just fresh and it just set in. And, there's an overhang due to collection of snow. So
Yes.
these are very vulnerable places at the tip of the ridges where, the ice might just fall even with a little bit of, vibration of you shouting or, talking loudly can also artificially trigger a avalanche to come. So yeah, it is a problem there. And it's, it's an open terrain. It's very steep, it's very excruciating. It's, yeah, you're prone to snow blindness,
Okay.
and you are prone to, the sun, skin burns due to the sharp rays of the sun. And there are more chances of getting skin cancer there if your skin remains exposed for a longer time, because there the ozone layer is kind of very thin or very less.
Okay.
And the higher the height you go, the ozone effect kind of wears down. So that's why it takes a toll on your body, and your eyes get affected, and skin gets affected. It affects your overall body, health wise, you know. So there's a lot of exertion that takes place. There's lack of oxygen, so you got to breathe. You got to actually make an effort to breathe. So yeah, there are multiple factors which actually uh, make you actually contemplate and have a foresightedness in terms of your movements over there.
Okay. Got it, sir. So in such cold, like, definitely, of course, it's quite tough while staying up in there. And while saying that it's quite tough, I believe there are also metal bites. So how do you prevent that? Like while covering something up or wearing gloves, wherein also you cannot wear gloves for all the time.
So in metal biting, what we tend to do is we wrap the items that we're usually going to hold and which are made up of metal with the band-aids, the white color gauze band-aids.
Yes, sir.
So with those bandages, it actually avoids any contact of our skin with the metal. So be it weapon or be it utensils, the handles and everything. So we usually tend to wrap them with the gauze bandages, and that helps us to avoid metal biting actually.
Okay. So, sir, in such cold, like how you and your troops kept yourself active throughout? Because it's usually, when if we get to hear from a civilian, it is usually, it's quite cold. It's uh, quite tough to move out, exercise, work. So
I
how do you
mean,
handle it?
we were into push-ups and sit-ups, and push-ups and sit-ups were the main. We did not have any infrastructure there to, set anything up for chin-ups. And we were instructed not to overexert because of lack of oxygen. And only half the party, half the boys used to actually exercise one day. The other half used to exercise the next day, because, the half of the troops, exercising there. But other troops used to be on the posts for their guard duties. So we used to distribute, we used to do it alternate days amongst each other. But I was the only one who used to do it every day, and that too if the weather permitted. In case at times the weather used to be extremely cold in terms of even taking breath, would take a lot of effort and extremely cold. I mean, beyond bearable. So post duties used to continue, but PT at times, I mean, I wouldn't mention the height, but it was beyond normal human beings' comprehension. So, but I made it a point to make them do uh, some kind of physical, little strenuous activities, like carrying a load from one post to another post. So, that helped us keep our muscles intact. And because, you're at such a height, you lose appetite, the lack of oxygen. You have a lot of, you have loss of muscle. So, we should lose a lot of weight at that particular height. So, I mean, body did take its toll, on us. And mentally, yeah, it was like, yeah, it was difficult. It wasn't a piece of cake. But, when you're trained to deal with such things, you have that confidence and belief in you and that faith. Probably that is the factor that, yeah, it makes you unstoppable. And that's what, kept us going ahead.
So in a way, sir, this is also like big message for the youth as well, in order to like take learnings from your experience and actually applying it in their regular lives on what challenges they are facing. Of course, we just cannot be like not even have like 1% of the challenges that you face, but a lot of learnings can be acquired for sure. So, one question, like, with regards to, as you said, that, due to the weather harshness and the extreme weather conditions, right? You had to take a lot of care about what you were doing and, what was the consumption, the mobility and everything. So how was the planning? Like, was it a rigorous planning in terms of, making sure that everything is on point all the time? Because even a single error could be fatal.
I mean, we never used to follow much of a timing schedule in terms of food because food was entirely upon our body's metabolism. We all had our different types of metabolism because there were various age group of soldiers with me. And we young people did not have much of an issue compared to the ones who were a bit elder in age. And they used to take more time in digestion. We were active comparatively to them. So, we took less time to digest food. But however, at times we did feel lazy and we felt very apprehensive to consume food on a particular day at times because, that altitude is so much and, it takes effort for the body to digest food in where the ratio of oxygen is very less. So the body used to behave differently, body dynamics were different. Our rate of digestion was very long than usual. So yeah, body did behave in a little awkward manner. I mean, we used to feel hungry at very awkward hours.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's nothing. I mean, we used to eat जब भूख लगती थी, but हमें, coincidentally इकट्ठी भूख लगती थी. But we all used to eat together. So the ratio of hunger used to depend upon, if the elderly people are like, they used to feel less hungry compared to us. We were young people. We were young officers and few soldiers were young. So we were more, wanting to consume calories and do the chores at the post and everything and duties. So yeah, it did take significant uh, amount of time. You could say maybe around 10 to 15 days time to just settle down and have some kind of a schedule in terms of eating food together at a given time.
Okay.
It did not happen overnight.
So now that, as I just mentioned about planning, right? So one more question is there with regards to planning, but now this is around the fact that, as we know, Siachen is no more the active area, right? There has been no firing, no intrusion since a long time, right? Long, long time. So how is the approach now in terms of, patrolling, keeping an eye on the enemy border post? Is it
It's become more intensive. I mean, we have a very, I mean, we still have a defensive posture, but in terms of patrolling and area domination, we become more aggressive. And we keep, I mean, due to better technology, we have a good element of response time to any activity by the enemy side. And every and each, kind of enemy activities reported on well on time. We got good satellite imagery. So, I mean, yeah, overall it's been good. But during my time, drones were not there at Siachen. However, now, yes, they are using drones also now. So that's the best part. Drones are operating in sub-zero temperatures over there for monitoring and just checking out the territory and everything.
okay?
And during my time, there were satellites. But I think with time and since that Operation Jajjar Kotli took place, that was the first operation where ever in the Indian Army a drone was used to track down the terrorists. And during the same operation, Cheetah helicopter was actually asked to leave this place and land somewhere safe in case of an emergency casualty evacuation. So that was the first time when I actually saw a helicopter being asked to, go away from the site of the operation, and drones were put in place to actually track them precisely and home onto them, and then we went in for the kill. So yeah, 2018 was the time when we first used it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, one question with regards to, you said that the approach is now a little more intense, right?
It's become more aggressive as in we become more frequent. I mean, there were particular, I mean, the number of patrols used to be limited, keeping in mind the terrain and the administrative gear and all that we're wearing. But now, with the advancement of technology and everything, it is facilitating more and more patrolling. It gives you a better precursor and a reaction time as to what might unfold and where all the enemy positions are and what are the changes taking place in the enemy territory. So yeah, warfare has significantly changed quite a bit since 2012, 13 onwards.
So, also, like, now that you and your troops were up there, right? Commuting wasn't that easy, not at all easy. Neither was the fact, the stuff and the ration was coming on a regular basis. So during, if I say, your 4 to 6 months tenure of being up there at the peak, so what was the cadence of ration being transferred to you, including the fact that you were getting ECC clothes?
See, we had the winter clothing with us, all right. But then, the terrain was such, in winters it becomes non-negotiable. You can't go through it. I mean, the snow falls in a particular blizzard. Snow could go up to 10 feet of snow in one night.
Okay.
So it used to be that heavy snowfall. And once the snow takes place, your route is already marked. That route itself gets hidden. So the pickets all along the way with ropes along the way, they get buried into the snow. So the fight begins, that immediately after snow, in case in an emergency there's a movement, you actually got to go with the help of that rope throughout the route. And I mean, if you lose track of the rope, it's always advisable to be very careful and apply logic as to where the rope would be. And because any and every step could actually lead to a downfall into a crevasse into a nala or into a very big gap between stones in which you might fracture your leg, your shin or your femur or your knee might get fractured. We are carrying all that heavy load and luggage with us down or climbing up. So, I mean, it's a very massive challenge wherever you tend to move in Siachen. It's not an easy terrain, actually.
So one last question with regards to Siachen. So this time, like I'm basically considering your niche while being in the forces, which is that you are a marksman, right? In such heights, the sunlight is quite prominent. It comes at a large scale. So, did you and your troops at all, like took any sort of steps in order to cover your scope of the sniper rifle in terms of avoiding the shine or the sparkle that comes because of the sunlight falling on it?
See, now, with the latest of sights, weapon systems, equipment, they had sun protectors ahead.
Okay.
That was an extra rubber piece at the objective end of the telescope. So when the sunrays used to fall in, we used to get inside the telescope. Unless you are actually, almost in directly facing the sun, which is not the case. I mean, usually it does not happen. So it used to have the sun protectors onto the lens, and the eyepiece used to have that rubber piece, which used to again let us focus better onto the target than any other external condition have an effect on your eyesight and on your aiming. So yeah, that was the thing.
So the same technology also comes for the spotter as well. Like who holds? I believe that instrument is called a monoscope, right?
See, I'll tell you one thing, Arvin. In the previous podcast with Assistant Commandant, I think Pradeep was there. So he had asked me the same thing. That is more of American concept. As far as India is concerned, we guys are not too much or extremely into the sniper part. So we usually have one sniper per section, per platoon, sorry, per platoon. ठीक है. So out of 30 people, we have just one sniper guy, a well-trained guy. So these boys go for courses to sniper school. I mean, at a certain location in India, and they train there. They go through the course. They do the weapon handling and the firing and everything what the instructors have told them to do and follow. And then these soldiers come in and they are one-man army. They are the spotter and the firer themselves.
Okay.
So yeah. So we lack manpower, and we don't want to actually take a crowd with us for no reason. We usually operate in small teams. So the smallest team is a section comprising of a particular number of men. So that is how we go ahead. So we don't have the concept of sniper and a spotter. So the sniper himself is a spotter.
Okay. Right. So with this, like we are at least at the end of this section, which is with regards to Siachen, we like I in particularly learned that you also went through commando training.
Yeah.
As we have learned, that commandos are someone who are highly trained, right? Knows how to control their reflex actions, emotions, and even they can fold up the minute details in mind, even while going through the in the midst of the ruckus,
Yeah.
chaos, the utter chaos. So like post 3 months of that training, 3 months or more of the commando training, what is the psychological impact on a soldier?
I mean, the commando training is, it's unforgiving. It's very difficult, and it's a kind of a training, which very selective soldiers go in for. It's not a course where you find, अच्छा, इतना strength है तो हम इतने बंदे भेज रहे हैं. It doesn't happen like that. Every unit is going to send in their best.
Okay.
So it's something which is not just any other course where you can just send in somebody and say कि यार अच्छा ठीक है भेज दो. No, you are actually pre-preparing for that particular course. You're getting ready for it, and it has a lot of implications, because you are going there as a representative of your particular unit. So you do not have the luxury to fail and come back. I mean, that's the biggest insult to your own self-respect, that if your Palton has asked you to go in and do this course, they are instilling all their faith and trust in you, and they have a lot of expectations. So it's not any other course. It's a course which puts a lot of pressure because there are a lot of expectations for you to perform. And the boys keep taking regular feedbacks from Commando School कि हमारा साहब कैसा कर रहा है? How tough is our साहब? And is he good? Is he good in navigation? Is he good in driving? Is he good in rendering first aid? Is he good in casualty evacuation? How's his special mission skills? How are his navigational skills? How is he as a team player? I mean, they have all the questions in the world lined up. And at the end of the day, everybody knows how good, bad, or ugly a particular soldier or officer is performing of a various Palton.
So when you said that the Jawans have lot many questions, so is it that how is the officer in particular activities, right? So now my question with regards to this is, an officer knowing everything, is it because so that when he or she has to assign a particular task to one of his troops, so he or she should have experienced it before to understand it way better when he or she might be giving a deadline or a target to them? Is it that?
No, yeah, I mean, everything you're going to experience is usually going to be for the first time, especially in terms of mission. So, so you got to learn as you are actually experiencing it.
Okay.
It's something which is not pre-fed. It is not something which is already planned. I mean, it's planned at the nick of the moment, and it's planned almost next to perfection.
Okay. Right. So last question for this section to you. So you have been a part of infantry since the beginning of time when you joined, right? So what difference in a positive way you experience between being a part of the regular infantry and having received that commando training? So what was the difference between the infantry mindset and the commando mindset in terms of the approaches that one should be following, etc.?
In a Paltan, we come as young boys, and commando school is where young boys are made into men.
Okay.
Like a commando school is a place where it pushes you beyond your mental will, beyond your physical limits, and it is how you challenge your invincibility.
Okay.
How good you are in actually challenging that particular condition, that that you're going to overcome it. You're not going to let it dictate terms to you, but you are going to take the lead and dictate terms of how things are to be done your way. So that is how it tests your patience levels. It tests you it tests you most when you are physically broken down, you are mentally tired, and you are at a threshold which is actually a decider whether it's a make or break. So they push you, they take you to that edge where psychologically you realize कि यार या तो आर या पार है. It is very I mean, the dilemma is real, the pressure is real, and at times, the best part is we are with our course-mates and brothers. So the moment when one of them tries to, just become a bit loose in terms of his reaction and going about things, So that is when the other guy actually pumps up and motivates him that no, you can do this. So then, then we question ourselves that if he can do it, then why can't I? And the other guy is saying, if you want to fall, you always take the next step, only then you're going to fall. Don't fall standing, fall running. So we were like, yeah, agar ek kadam aage rakh liya, to I've moved ahead. So why fall now? You can fall on to the next step. So let's take the next step, next step, next step. So, you keep going, 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 going. So, I mean, I feel what an amazing feeling it was, the dopamine levels were so high. I mean, that feeling of achievement was, God level altogether. It was insane.
Okay.
It was like just too amazing.
Right. So like things are like, it's quite enlightening in terms of knowing, like, when people say that one person belongs to infantry, and finally when someone gets
Mm.
uh, the commando training. With this, we come to the end of this section. Now, we are coming to the part which I believe has been in the highlights for most of the time, which is with regards to South Sudan, the UN peacekeeping mission you were a part of, where thousands of rebels were actually charging towards their camp, and you and your troops had a plan in order to save yourselves as well as the refugees who were there in the camp. So my very first question to you is: before you were actually sent to Sudan, what was the kind of briefing that you received for actually heading towards there, and if there was anything specific, like what was the current scenario of that situation with regards to the war that was there, if
I mean,
anything?
it was evidently available on the international media. It was all over the news on Times Now. It was on Al Jazeera. It was on all Indian channels of, we losing Lieutenant Colonel Mahipal and four other ranks of a Maha regiment. So, I mean, it was all over the news. So everybody knew what kind of a reality we are facing and where we are heading. So that is the time where, the atmosphere of happiness, joy actually turned into a atmosphere of doubt, atmosphere of anxiety, atmosphere of the unknown, the unknown dark phenomena in which we were going to enter. So, I mean, that pitara of questions actually made the atmosphere quite serious and quite grim. At the same time, there was anger. There was a mindset of, that we're going to hit back. But eventually, we realized it's a UN mission. We are a neutral country. You can't take any of those mindsets along with you. You got to just enforce peace or maintain peace. You got to keep peace. So eventually, we never got off from our mindset of the UN mandate, and we followed it very respectfully, despite all the challenges and the war that happened and unfolded, and we were stuck in between it, and how we rebutted the rebels. So yeah, with time, yes, things were like becoming better by the day, but they were quite challenging.
Okay. So before actually going in, were you actually were you allotted any special kind of weapons or any special training with regards to heading to that place, or it was all just the regular thing, because the regular
No,
one?
we were rendered special training. We were also trained to know about the enemy side. We were like trained to know about South Sudan and what are the key sensitive aspects of them and their society and their religion and what was their famous food. I mean, we were more acquainted to their culture and mindset as the class of South Sudan. What class of people are they? What type of people are they? How do they react to hostilities? How brutal are they? And what I mean, there's so many various factors of their development. However, how much ever they had done, how did they achieve it? Thorough case studies in terms of the infrastructure building, and the number of tribes that they had were quite too many. And but mainly the warring tribes were Dinka Nuer tribe.
Right. So, sir, the place where you had your observation post, and you and your troops were serving. So, would you like to tell us something about the demography of the place and the entire area?
It was an area of approximately 500 by 400 meters, and it was surrounded with barbed wires, a lot of containers inside, a lot of big gensets inside. So, and a lot of tall grass around us, surrounding us. There are a lot of tall grass, जिसे हम हिंदी में सरकंडा कहते हैं,
Yes, sir.
or you might say, elephant grass. So that was the thing, that was that.
So, what were the vulnerabilities, I would say, limitations, threats of that particular area in South Sudan, and how did they impact your psychological and physical aspects of the troops?
I mean, um, psychologically, we were mentally all decked up and prepared that, okay, because the moment we boarded the aircraft from India, I mean, we knew we were entering into a very hostile territory where a message was already given, that Indians are not welcomed in the way how things had unfolded. So we were more crewed up, we were more mentally alert, we were very vigilant,
Okay.
and we never took things on a lighter side at all throughout. And we were combat ready every time, 24/7.
So also, okay, sir, completely understand, sir. So also, I learned one more thing that while heading to that place, you talked about that it was the very first time you got exposed to mortal remains. So,
That wasn't, not that first time. I mean, my great grandfather, when he passed away, so, I had shouldered his mortal remains. I was in, I think, class 8th or 9th that time. So, not that I have not witnessed anyone from the family passing away and not being there. So, I've seen all that. So, I mean, I was aware of the situation, but in terms of professional service, I mean, yes. My first exposure was to a soldier from Swaiman Guards, 17 Rajaf, and they were deployed there. And in an avalanche, there were, I believe, 2 to 3 boys who passed away. God bless their souls. And then we need to, deal with the mortal remains. And then, later on, we actually took an effort to, fit the mortal remains into the helicopter, and then, to fly it down to Hundar. And one of the most intriguing part was, that one of the boys was very tall. He couldn't fit into the hector. So the doctors actually had to use a drill, a different special drill that the doctors used to actually, remove some portion of the feet so that the body fits into the motor and fit into the helicopter. And because we're in a cheetah helicopter, that's too small. And this boy's height was, I think, 6'3" or something, 6'2", 6'3". He's a massive, tall guy. And then we had to actually, fit him into the Hepter and then fly him down to Hundar. There they did up his legs back again. So, I mean, these were the things which, you never experienced, you never knew. And you were like, "Ye acha aise bhi hota hai." Such things also happen. I mean, I was quite surprised to one to actually watch all that happen.
so you also mentioned about having seen child soldiers who were literally all set to even charge on you and the troops if the situation had been that. So my question is like, what was your experience and what did you feel at that time while actually seeing them, witnessing a small child holding a gun, trying to literally kill someone if he or she advances towards them, and what would have been your approach if they had tried killing you or your troops?
I mean, see, going for frequent patrollings in that area, you almost knew all the kids by face. That okay, this is the guy whom we saw the other day. Okay, this kid was acting a bit funny on the patrolling day.
Okay.
Okay, these kids used to actually climb onto our jeep's hood and just sit onto it while we used to go for patrolling. They used to climb onto the back of the vehicle where where the tire used to be like a stepney. So they used to just take support of these vehicles and just lean onto them and just to take a ride. And we used to go at a very safe and a slow speed. We used to go with deliberation into these areas for patrolling. We were never too quick. We took our time and we had a proper look everywhere wherever we went.
Okay.
So, I mean, we were never in a hurry or haste in terms of our patrolling. I mean, we had to make a presence felt that here we have arrived and this is it. So that is the thing, how things used to happen over there. So yeah, the problem is that there's a lot of unpredictability of kids who are child soldiers. You never know when a child's mind, changes, his mindset changes. He's in a very different kind of a mood, or he's in a very inquisitive mood. "Okay, let's see what happens if I do this." I mean, they're kids. You can't read the mindset. It's not easy. Irrespective of you knowing psychology as well, the child's mind is always very fragile and volatile.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, full of surprises. I mean, the kind of energy level that they have and they carried with them. I mean, we were very, very careful and, observing them. I mean, we used to pray, that such a situation should never come where we would draw a weapon against them. I mean, irrespective of we knew that what all crimes they were committing, and there were human right violations mostly by these kids because they never knew what is right, what is wrong. And so yes, they were a cause of major concern over there for us.
So when you said that they were actually causing harm to the people around there, the major killings were because of them. So, like, were you able to actually, figure out the mentality they were molded into? Like, if you talk about some terrorists, like, from hailing from Lakshya or
I
Hizbul.
mean, they were, since the time they were kids, they only knew how to survive. They were into fighting. There was no proper education or any motherly care taken of these boys. They were usually with the rebel troops, so they were quite rowdy, and they had committed a lot of crimes against humanity, and they were rebels end of the day, and they used to bully these child soldiers. So you learn according to the company in which you are. So these kids learned violence in the company in which they were. For them, it was a very normal thing. Any dead body, any or ever laying, and they were used to sit around it at times. They used to remove the belt or the rings or the slippers and shoes. The at times the clothing also they used to remove,
Okay.
depending whether it was less messed up or less dirty. And there was a fight more regarding footwear. They used to always steal the footwear from the dead. It's such a poor country. There were no shops around for sale of shoes and everything. So all in all, yeah, things were quite different there. I mean, we were on the edge constantly. We did have firefights and skirmishes in which I was, and I still am sure that we did take a hit at them, the child soldiers, and because they were ruthless. I mean, they didn't see who was old, who's young, who's they never cared who's a father or a mother, sister, daughter. mother, nothing, elderly lady, nothing. They were just emotionless. And they used to just go ahead and just kill and move on. Like, they just are doing some kind of a time pass there with no intent. They used to kill indiscriminately. So, yeah, that was a
More or less
cause
they're
of
just
major
tired.
concern when we used to observe them, when we used to get the reports that, child soldiers are seen. So, wherever we got reports where child soldiers were, basically we knew that this was an area or a perimeter where something ugly would definitely unfold in times to come. So that was quite intriguing and worrying for all of us.
Okay. So what you just said that child soldiers were quite ruthless. They never saw who the person was whom they were killing. But there is something which wherein it is mentioned that the rebels were quite respectful of the elders. So is it true? Like were
I
they?
mean, they were seniors to these child soldiers, and they used to keep child soldiers up to a certain limit uh, when they used to go to a war. So usually they were at the forefront. So by the time any war is to take place and is to wind up and we're done with the fighting, most of the casualties used to be these young guys,
Okay.
young kids. Yeah. And the mature men with weapons and all, they had regard for elders. They never fired back at them. But there was one particular incident where a bunch of these adults were passing by. They stopped, they questioned the ladies for a little while. There were three ladies, and they shot all three. And immediately, a BMP had to be taken at a particular point out of emergency. And then these ladies were brought in and they were operated, out of which two passed away, and the one who was shot survived. So it was quite ruthless. It was not good. It was
So
not a good sight.
right, completely understandable, sir. So with regards to the fact that it's being ruthless, I also got to know that there was a stadium which was almost turned into a graveyard. That it went so intense that
Yeah.
it turned on. So what is that exactly?
I mean, we used to go for patrolling, and earlier when things were a bit decent, there used to be friendly volleyball matches, football matches in that particular stadium. But as the war broke out, the city disintegrated, the rebels took over the city, and eventually a lot of destruction and burning of houses, raw material, rations, and everything. So उससे क्या हुआ कि lot of bodies piled up all over the city. I mean, every day we used to go for patrolling. We used to keep finding more and more bodies, and we used to actually hit back at the rebels at times. To move away or make them, get away from particular areas. We used to ambush them, and as a result, the people ran out of place where to bury them because the cemeteries were already filled. So as a result, the mayor of Malakal then decided to convert the stadium into a graveyard. So we had these bulldozers and JCBs. So they went in and they dug up huge pits, and in that the dead bodies used to be dumped rather. And it was sad to see, human beings being just pushed by JCB, like it pushes a pile of mud. That was the amount of bodies which they threw, and there were bodies shot at, or total opened up bodies, and just you know in contact with the torso. Rest above is all split open, and I mean, things were not good. There were a lot of bodies without heads dumped, and heads were found somewhere else at times. You would see animals eating onto the body parts, birds eating onto the body parts, and vultures grazing onto them. I mean, uh, the most intriguing part was that what struck me was that these are human beings. I mean, I am a human being as well. So it's like you're watching your own species actually uh, vanish or perish due to two fighting factions and their political requirements for power. So their greed of power actually resulted in, I mean, almost no value to human life. It was a very sad sight.
Completely. So there were two scenarios wherein one you were almost attacked by a machete, a guy coming with a machete, and you were, I believe, saved by Major CP and Major Harsh,
Yeah,
and the other time you were almost hit by a bullet. So how did that happen?
I mean, it was a morning that day, and as college kids usually fool around with each other, so I thought these kids are together. So he just held one of the kids in his this uh, grip, in the arm grip. So his head was here, and he just held the kid in the arm grip, and he was not letting go of the kid. And मस्ती मजाक में मुझे लगा कि इसमें लगा के they just took him into a particular corner, and after taking him into a particular corner, uh, uh, then the next thing I saw was everybody, all the boys running away from that particular spot,
Okay.
and that would have been approximately around 60, 70 meters away from my location. So after, when I saw guys running away from the location, I quickly went up to that particular location, and that is where I actually saw that they had used a cement block to just kill him. They threw the cement block on his head, and this guy's head just opened up.
Okay.
All his the material in the brain was all out onto the floor, and I mean, there was no injury to this guy other than his head opened up from behind, and the cement block was right there. And at a particular moment, I knew he's no more. I checked his pulse as a formality. He wasn't alive. And there were a lot of sheets hanging there. It was something like a enclosure at a makeshift place to sit for people to have tea and all. That was empty. So I just tore away one bed sheet, and I just put it onto his body, and covered him up. And then I started walking up to the UN compound to call in for the Red Cross people to come and take the mortal remains of that particular boy, the body. Basically, he was uh, I think he was a newer,
Okay.
and this is what happened. And then after 10, 15 minutes, I see a group of 30, 40 boys wielding machetes just charging towards me.
Okay.
And before then, I saw two Dinkas, of which one was already injured. They cut open his head with a machete.
Okay.
And I mean, water was oozing out. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, not water, but blood was oozing out like water. And I mean, I knew that this is it. Either I make a move or they make a move. I am dead. And then the day goes on as usual. So that was a very worrying and a troublesome thought. And at that time, while they were advancing, I asked 3 to 4 times
Okay.
that that may have permission to fire. I narrated the situation immediately. I didn't get a response. I asked second time, may I fire? It takes time for somebody to in that chaos. The 2IC sitting in office, he is actually not acquainted with what is happening there and then on the ground. And my voice wasn't in panic, but I was quite quick. Sir, I have 40 boys coming towards me with machetes. Permission to fire. No reply. I'm like, sir, now they are almost 50 meters ahead of me. Permission to fire. No reply. I said, now there's no point asking. So I just opened a fire. So I fired 3 rounds onto the ground near them, and then I fired 2 rounds into the air. So total rounds fired were 5. and then I pointed it out to them.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, the two injured guys were hiding behind me and not moving anywhere. And these guys are tall, massive guys. They're 6 feet tall.
Okay.
I am 5'11", almost 6 feet. But these were like 6'1", 6'2". And I mean, and 40, 50 guys with machetes. It's like a mob doesn't get scared that easy. So they were just, pointing out onto the chest that, you want to take him, you take him here. That is the time when I realized they are just not scared. So luckily मेरे पीछे एक deep freezer रखा हुआ था, and I just jumped onto the deep freezer and I had a comfortable vantage point. And then I took a proper aim at them.
Okay.
All right. And after taking the aim with my left hand, I just did this. I was holding it with the forearm grip,
Okay.
forehand grip. And after I was pointing out to them, I just did this to them. I mean, I was like, come on, get it on. So, and I was pointing it on to the guy who was actually, aiming onto his chest that you want to take a hit, you take it over here onto my chest. So it is to that guy that I was doing. You want to mess around, you come ahead. And that is the time when all these guys actually stopped.
Okay.
After they halted, uh, and ush time fair, they got a message that this guy is a guy not to mess around with. And I mean, there could have been consequences. In the meanwhile, then Major CP knew that this thing wouldn't hold for long. I mean, ultimately, it would have ended up in me actually, firing into them and a lot of casualties, and I definitely would have not made it out alive. So they had a better assessment of the situation, and they actually came into with on a BMP, that's an infantry carrying vehicle, and they came with full speed. And when it moves, there's a lot of vibration on the ground. It's a bloody heavy machine, and it's mean when it moves. And with it, when it moves with speed, it gets in a hell lot of dust. So, I could just imagine the scene that in the background there's this heavy machine which is coming full throttle, facing with its turret onto the enemy, and I'm standing there. So in my background, they're seeing this tank coming for my rescue, and I'm already pointing my weapon out at them. I have two injured people behind me, just hoping against hope that they survive and make it. And the moment the BMP reached, it took a roundabout turn. But the beauty of it was that the turret, the barrel, the turret barrel was, actually facing them all the time. So
Okay.
the gyroscope was so good. It was just aiming onto them, and the lower body, it turned around, and then they opened the back doors, and in went that one injured guy, the other injured guy, both the Dinkas who were injured. And then I moved in, and Major CP just caught me by my bulletproof jacket and collar, and he just actually pulled me in, because the moment the injured guys moved in, they started charging.
Okay.
So that is the time when Major CP just held me and he pulled me in. I was with my weapon pointing out, and then the BMP moved, and the one door got closed. My door was still open, with my partial of my legs out, with my weapon pointing onto them. And then once he moved away, then he closed the door as well. And straight away, the BMP headed to the hospital. So we went into the hospital, and we actually, that guy who was hit with the machete, I mean, he had to be given 4, 5 bottles of blood. I mean, that was the amount of blood that he lost within that time span of, I think, five, 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it was a close call.
So,
And then there were many close calls, a lot of bullets flying around, and mortar shells falling, RPG shells being fired at you. And at the other time when we were gymming, and the bullet just entered into the gym and went through and through. hit the second layer of the glass and fell into the gym, the bullet. That is where we just realized, and Atwasi shouted, to your post, to your posts. And we everybody left all our weights and everything. We threw everything onto the ground. And in our shorts and our t-shirts, we just wearing a bulletproof jackets and everything. And took our weapons and we just sprinted towards our post and got ready.
Okay.
So it was that volatile and a fragile kind of atmosphere where anything could happen at any particular second.
Okay. So Major Randheshwar was hit. Was it in this very incident as well? When the
No,
bullet...
Major Randheshwar was hit during riots where he lost his eyesight to one eye, and he was hit with what do we say? What they used to do is they used to make puddles of mud. Then they used to break the glass bottles into the puddles of mud. Then they used to make a paste out of these of this wet mud or kichad, what you call it, and they used to make the mud cakes kind of a thing, but in a shape of a ball.
Okay.
And they used to keep it for drying. And after keeping it for drying at times at night, it used to get cold. It's an open, arid, semi-arid terrain, open terrain. So it used to definitely get cold at night. So what these guys used to do, when they used to put on the fire, so they used to put these in fire.
Okay.
They used to become rock solid, like clay pots and all. So during riots, they used to actually now it's become a glass ball basically. So whenever they used to throw it, so irrespective of it hitting us at any vital part or not, but even if it used to hit us on our arm, and despite it being covered with shirt, we used to get cuts and bruises from them.
Okay.
So yeah, it was not a good thing to face. I mean, despite we having the face protective helmets and everything, but that day it was so sudden, so quick. We did not get a chance to wear a helmet. We just reached at the spot, and the initial damage control, we were doing of the riot and separating them. And immediately after separating them, so there was a briefing going on that, okay, this is the next course of action. I was already ready with my troops facing them. And that is a time when some random person actually threw that. And I mean, you could say it is destiny or whatever you could. It just went and it hit him into the eye.
Oh. So it was a permanent loss, sir?
Uh,
Permanent.
yeah, permanent loss of sight, and is this edge of the skull was fractured. The socket was fractured from one of the edges over here. And I mean, the damage was extensive. I saw it by myself. I took Sir to the MI room, and then for documentation, we had to click photographs of his eye. I mean, it wasn't a good sight. I was very angry. And after that, within 2 or 3 days, that anger kind of burst out onto the mob. And, they were taken care of well and given appropriate answer in terms of handling them. And the riots and the mob that, went on a rampage, we were actually very stern and strict in taking care of them.
Okay. So last two questions from you. This is with regards to one, having your supplies blocked, food supplies as well as what I learned was even your medical supplies were blocked as well when the rebels took over the airport. Second question is when the rebels attacked the food barge, the World Food Program barge. So how come, sir, these two things took place?
I mean, the war was on. The rebels made it a point to put a blockade and not let any food in, including UN. I mean, we never received our food, but then the best part is that we were always, well stocked.
Okay.
So we had a good, good cushion time of around 10 days of rations and to sustain, and medicines were sufficient enough. I mean, mainly medicines were there for, gunshot wounds, for blunt trauma wounds, as, would take place, stab wounds. So we all were actually there. I mean, at one particular point of time, yes, there was an issue because they were actually at a particular location, uh, Bentiu or some place. They actually got down a helicopter by RPG fire,
Okay.
a UN helicopter, piloted by Russian pilots,
Okay.
and then that is the time when actually the helicopters, they used to airdrop the food and medicines. Ultimately, they were also grounded for a while after this incident took place. So we were worried, but I think eventually, perseverance and consistency and your robust attitude, levels that pressure, it becomes normal. So that is what happened. We managed and sustained. Uh, However, there were few locations which were at the tipping point on the edge where there are just 2 to 3 days of rations left, where actually we gave ultimatum to the rebels that if you don't let the Hepter in, then we are going to actually uh, organize a proper repulsive attack, and we're going to get into heavy reciprocation because you can't push us in desperation, and we are there for a job to do, so don't cross the line. So that is where the rebels actually, agreed that okay, fine, food and basic medicines can come in because even their men were injured. Even they were requiring, medical first aid, which they were not well equipped with. So as a result, we told them that, we're going to treat your men as well. So you got to let things come in. However, they were quite stubborn for food to come in, and there was a barge which was attacked by the anti-government forces with an RPG and anti-aircraft fire, and with a 30 millimeter gun, things were fired on it. However, the barge survived. It didn't sink. It reached our location. On reaching our location, it was inspected by the Swedish Army, by US and the German armed forces who were there deployed with us, the officers and the observers from UN on UN deputation. And yes, it was a very close call. Yeah, I mean, it could have anything could have gone anywhere. I mean, even one of the compartment of the barge's engines was hit. The
Okay.
bullet went through and through into one of the compartments, and but thankfully, I mean, there was no major failure, and it kept afloat, and ultimately they picked up speed and they reached our location. After that, then there were protection given by UN boats, through the river Nile to also get the food in. And because road was very fragile, roads were avoided.
Okay.
That is where maximum ambushes were already set up. So most of the food came through waterways. After a negotiation by the UN ambassador, Mr. Toby Lanza, I was his personal secretary, as a security officer. So being his PSO, you have to be with him 24/7 with your armed troops. And he's one person who was very flamboyant, and he was not scared. He used to enter any hostile area irrespective of the risk. And I had to actually talk him out at times. That's I am not going to take you in because a risk is just too much. I used to tell him that, tell me 2 3 hours before, I'll have the area recceed and then we'll take you in, and we'll take you in an armored vehicle or something. But he used to be so adamant. He'd be like, no, let's go right now. And while going to a particular place, en route, the convoy used to tell that, okay, no, we'll go there.
Okay.
So that used to be the actual challenge, that, I mean, I used to dread that, I used to pray that, nothing should actually go wrong. I mean, we could just hope. And rest we were mentally ready, physically all fit, and up to the task of, facing the enemy at any point of time. And that was, I mean, lot many times we were on the edge. And he was the one who was a very key person to actually negotiate with the mayor of Malakal, the rebel mayor, the self-styled, self-imposed mayor. So he spoke with them, and he told them that let the food come in. Yeah, I mean, and they said that okay, as a humanitarian gesture, if you've got ladies and young people with you, we can offer food to you, and food is going to the refugee camp, and we want you to actually send people from your army also to surrender. And they were very smart, at times they used to send in their guys to surrender into the camp to get the intelligence and data. And these guys used to actually walk out of the camp later, because we can't hold anyone into the camp against their will. So, just to move out. So, the number of weapons were intact with the rebels, but their representatives and people coming in and moving out of the UN command was quite frequent. And we had been profiling their people,
Okay.
the rebel forces, kaun hai. And at times we caught few red-handed in the camp. I said, you're a rebel. Few we arrested with pistols on them, carrying grenades. They smuggled in grenades to actually, at night they used to actually throw at few particular places, grenades with the pin inside. You just throw it, just to deliver it. But thankfully, none of the refugees or any of the planted guys actually exploded a grenade in the camp. However, one attempt was made, but as God willing and luck would have it, that did not go off.
Okay.
It was a misfire grenade. And then a UXO team, from the UN in the compound were called, and they did the marking of that area, sealed it off. I was there. Then they put this particular grenade in a container, in a metal container, which was quite thick and heavy. And then they took it outside the camp, and then they actually, diffused it with the explosive. So yeah, situations were on the edge. A lot of blunt weapons, knives, everything. You know what is a refugee camp,
Yes, sir.
with both the warring factions sitting there. They were. Two enemies under the same roof is quite a difficult situation to, take care of, and it was very sensitive. And at one point of time, uh, it was bad. It was bad. It wasn't a decent sight, and the, at times few girls came in, and this hit a bit. They came and they complained that they were raped by around 18 men at night yesterday. They were abducted from the bathroom.
Okay.
So, it was a bathroom on sharing basis, like two are joining, two are joining. These are two for ladies, two for men. So that is the time where these boys actually abducted these two ladies, and they 17, 18 guys kind of raped them, and they came and told us. And then we kept on doing the profiling and asking, and we used to keep clicking photos, getting it to the ladies in the hospital. That this one. So they did recognize 7, 8 boys. We did apprehend them. We handed them over to the UN police. So the UN police then interrogated them and caught more boys who were involved in that particular heinous act. And then they were arrested, and I don't know, they were put in jail or whatever would have been the fate. But I've seen situations which are not good. There were widows who were delivering babies in the camp, their husbands no more because of the war. Some female lost her husband a day ago. Some lady lost her husband on the day of the delivery of their child. A lot of sad stories which were unimaginable. I mean, it wasn't good.
Completely. So rapes are only done of like the women belonging to the other tribe, right? Hailing from the other tribe. In a way,
Say
it
again,
was
I didn't get your question. Do you
uh,
repeat your question?
I was saying that the rapes were done of the women hailing from the other tribe in a
Yeah,
way to take revenge.
yeah. Yes.
Okay. So,
You see, in a war situation, in a refugee camp, you will have murderers, you will have thieves, you will have convicts, you will have rapists, you will have pedophiles, you will have drug dealers, you will have these drug mafias operating inside the refugee camp. I mean, whatever crime is to go out in the city is now confined to a very smaller space. And there were a lot of killings into the refugee camp, the vengeance wala killings. And somebody owed somebody money, and somebody owed somebody gold or some particular thing or a property. So a lot of revenge were taken, and a lot of bodies were recovered on daily basis. And then people had ailments. So, death in the refugee camp was almost on a everyday basis, either
Okay.
natural causes or due to bullet wounds, due to the war, or due to internal problems and differences. So, I mean, it was chaos. It was pure chaos inside the camp. There were around 20,000 people in the camp.
Okay. And the area was not that big as well.
No, area wasn't that big. Area was quite limited. And yeah, I mean, it was difficult. It was difficult for everyone, perhaps, to actually witness whatever we saw there. And it wasn't a good sight.
Completely understand. So, yes, sir. So these were the set of questions I had for you. Thank you so very much for sparing out time for this session and being so very much patient during the entire
Thank you,
1 minute.
Irvin. And, I'm looking forward for you to, inviting me to your podcast studio.
Sure, sir.
And that would be the actual moment where I'm expecting you to actually take a leap ahead to another level altogether. Because, I've seen your professionalism, your dedication and focus in terms of your research on a particular person. So I feel this platform will not do justice to the kind of efforts that you put in. But yeah, you inviting your guest speakers to your studio in the coming times is definitely going to, get a big boom, and is going to take your venture of this podcast way, way ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. Surely I'll do that. It would be a pleasure to have you all over again.
Yeah, soon. I am hoping to catch up really soon again with you. All the very best and do well. And I feel that the best is yet to come when I visit your studio soon, and I give you the interview in person. That is where it's going to be, actually the real deal. But this is good for a start, an amazing effort. And I am very confident that you are going to go way, way ahead in times to come. And you are going to do well. Just stay focused, stay put, and just remain in the fight. Just be there, You just got to hang on there for a minute longer. That's what we say in Forge. So just hang on in there, day, telling yourself that the only easy day was yesterday. So that's going to keep you going and take every day as a new challenge. And I'm sure you're going to deliver really well in terms of your endeavors that you have planned to, come up with. All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right, Arvind. Jai Hind, and take
Yes,
care
sir.
of yourself.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.